So here's my audience for today's speech.
Make sure it focuses on me too. Okay. So I'm here today. I'm going to explain to you guys what the controversial topic of violence within the video games itself is. Video games are a huge part of my generation, at least. I play them all the time. Any chance I get, I should say. I've been working for video games, for GameStop, I should say, for about 4 years. So I always have to explain the content that's within the video games to parents and whatnot. One of the most controversial things, I should say, is the violence actually within the video games. People are constantly bickering about that, and they keep saying that it's starting to affect our younger generation. I would say more of the younger generation, but it still affects people overall. We need to decide where that point is where we draw the line and say that we've actually gone too far in the virtual reality world. So throughout today's speech, I'm going to give you a rundown on like the background of the video game history, where all the madness actually begins, the negative effects of the video games itself, relatable tragedies as well, Columbine being that, but I'll get into that more later on. And then I'm going to talk about the ESRB rating as well, which I actually have a couple handout for you guys so you guys can look at. And then I'm going to give you guys some statistics as well. So let's jump right into it. So the video game background, it has come so far from what it used to be. It started out as just text-based games. So by that I mean you actually had to type in a command. So you had to turn left or go into cave and stuff like that. So you actually had to tell the computer what you actually wanted to do. And one of the most popular games, which I don't know if you guys know what it is, it's actually called Zork. That was a big seller. But then after that, gaming transformed into a more visual format like it is today. Joysticks were introduced, so it gave the developers a lot more variety, I should say. Along with joysticks, controllers were actually invented. So with that being said, with all the different button combinations and the analog sticks, it allowed a lot more user input so they could add a lot more content into the game itself. And then after controllers, mouse and keyboard is invented. And just think of all the buttons on the keyboard, the amount of combinations of buttons and whatnot you could put together is tremendous. And then game companies now today, they're building their own game engines. Games like Battlefield with the Frostbite 3 engine, they have their own real game, like real-time physics, like bullet drop and all that stuff. It's absolutely amazing how far we've actually come in the gaming industry itself. Now I'm going to get into the refutation, which is people's argument against video games and how they say violence isn't affecting our younger generation. There's differing opinions about this, of whether or not video games actually do increase video game violence. Some researchers say that video games have zero impact on people's lives because it allows people to, I should say the players themselves, it allows them to express their anger and keep the anger inside of the game so they don't have everything all bundled up inside. Video games can also be stress relieving, I could say. It depends on what you're playing. If you're playing games like Madden, or like Little Big Planet, for example, like Madden's just a sports game. You get on there, you play with a buddy, you lose, darn, it's whatever. Little Big Planet's just like a side scroller like Mario, like the old Marios. So it's just like little platforms that you run through, different challenges, obstacles, different. It's a fun game. It's not supposed to be competitive like Call of Duty and whatnot. Violent video games allow players to get all their internal stress out without harming or affecting anyone in the real world. So they don't have to physically take out anger on someone else to make themselves feel better. So after saying the refutation, we're actually going to go into how the negative effects of video games. So video games, like I said, is one of the biggest influences on violence today. Games like Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, Mortal Kombat, they're all the main factors of why violence is said to be such a big impact. And I'm actually going to show you guys a couple videos, and you guys will see why, actually. So if you want to watch the TV now. So this is a little clip on one of the scenes in Grand Theft Auto. I am going to admit it's a little graphic, so if you guys can handle it, you might want to turn your head for a couple of minutes. Get right into it.
The torture scene is the most shocking scene in GTA 5. You can waterboard a character, break a kneecap with a wrench, electrocute him with a car battery. And if you're feeling particularly savage, extract a tooth with a pair of pliers. It's so savage.
Best way to make a man talk is to stop him being able to talk. That's too much! Yeah, you like that, don't you?
Okay, so after that one, then we're going to go into the more, I would say, gorier version of it. So if you're not fond with blood and whatnot, definitely want to turn your head here.
We gonna throw down?
These are a couple of the fatalities in the new Mortal Kombat X game. Okay, there's a couple more. They keep getting even more intense.
Told you not to come.
Doesn't mean I have to listen.
When you gonna learn? Flawless victory. Fatality.
Now this one in particular, this one's just kind of out of hand.
Speaking of dental issues,
I eat little girls like you.
that explains the alluring breath.
Leader wins. Flawless victory.
Okay, I won't torture you guys with any more of that stuff, but
No more.
That
That's
is,
enough.
those are some prime examples of a lot of the video game violence and why they're said to be so considering. So with that, so children who play violent video games, they're said they're more likely to have increased aggressive thoughts, I guess you could say, feelings and emotions and whatnot. Gaming can be seen from many different perspectives, and reasoning behind some of the content can also be interpreted in different ways. So me seeing that content, I might think of something differently because it doesn't bother me as much, but I saw you cringing.
Oh, yes.
That stuff would bother
It
you
was
a lot
way
more
too
than what it would
gross.
bother me. And in many games, kids are actually rewarded for killing and stabbing and kicking, just like in Grand Theft Auto. You're rewarded for doing those torture scenes, which some people don't think is right. So now we're going to transition into how the video game violence has actually affected our society in general. And that being with Columbine, I'm pretty sure everyone is familiar with that. So violent video games are said to be tied in with a lot of the school shootings that have happened, and Columbine being one of those in specific. So if you don't know anything about Columbine, I'll give you a little history. So Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were the shooters that were involved in Columbine. And one of the factors that could have led to their inhumane actions was their interest in violent video games. The two boys actually enjoyed playing first-person shooters, and one of the first-person shooters they actually enjoyed the most was Doom, which is one of the games that were actually created by the U.S. military, and they were used to actually train the U.S. military to actually kill people. So it affected a lot of the actual Army people themselves. So the Simon Wiezel Center, which tracks the internet hate groups, they found in its archives a copy of Harris's video games, which he's actually altered himself. And inside of his video game that he altered, he gave himself and the other player unlimited ammo and a whole bunch of weapons that you don't normally get off the start. And then they were fighting up against people that were unarmed and couldn't fight back. So then so in their version, like I said, they made people to where they could just kill them, no problem. And then Harris and Klebold, they actually made a videotape of their school project that was very similar to their customized version of the game. So they wore trench coats, they walked around, they killed random people. Not really killed, but made a video of it. And then they ended up acting out their performance in real life a couple of years later. So, in my opinion, I feel like Harris and Klebold actually used the video games as their scapegoat. Video game is transitioning to a lot of online. I'm going to get a little off topic here. But video game is transitioning to a lot of online, which means it's a lot of online battles. So people in another area fighting against another person in another area and to see who can actually win. So I know from personal experience that when a player dies, or I should say myself, whenever I die in a game or I lose, I get very frustrated very quickly because I like to win. But again, this also depends on the player as well. But like I said, you just have to experience it. I guess, like I said, it depends on the player. I get very frustrated. Some people may not. And then the ESRB rating, which I'm going to go in a lot in depth right here, is one of the ways we can actually prevent the video game violence if people actually take advantage of it. So now this is where I'm going to go into, I'm going to keep one for myself. Here is actually all of the different ratings on the ESRB rating systems, and then I'll talk about that for a little bit for a minute. So starting from the beginning, the early childhood, that's going to be for little kids, like math games, stuff like that, to get them nurtured and some knowledge into them. And then rated E for everyone, that's for basically most of the majority of players themselves. And then it just keeps going up, everyone 10 and up. And then as you go up, the maturity level just keeps increasing until you get to Mortal Kombat X, which is rated M. And there's also adult games, but those are a lot of more pornographic games you don't really see because there are a lot on the ban list. But the ESRB rating was developed in 1994. It was originally called the IDSA, which is the Interactive Digital Software Association, but they actually renamed it to the Entertainment Software Association in 2004. So they used to only have 5 categories, but now they have 7, as you can see. And then the main reason for that they actually put the ESRB rating into implementation is so consumers, especially parents, so they can actually see what is inside of the games. They can just turn the case around and it'll tell you nudity, violence, blood and gore, profanity, drug use, stuff like that. So I feel like with more parental control, if they knew about this and knew exactly what the message they're trying to get to them, they would understand and they could get more of what kind of content's in the game, not just go in, oh, what's this game about? Oh, okay, and then buy it for the children. So I just feel like if parents would take the time to check it, it would reduce a lot of the violence. So I feel like parents are kind of a lot of the concern. Now, one of my favorite things to do is whenever a kid comes in, say he's about 7, he comes in and he wants to buy Grand Theft Auto. And the parents are like, oh yeah, that's fine, because they don't know what's in it. So my favorite thing to do is I like to kind of ruin the kid's day, I should say, by explaining to the parent what's in it, that there are torture scenes, that there are rape scenes, there are nudity, drug use. And once the parents hear that, they're kind of like astonished, like, oh, why would they make games like that? But the thing is, just a minute ago, you were going to buy this kid for your game, or buy this game for your kid without you even knowing. So if parents would go a little bit out of their way just to see what's inside the game, it could reduce this a bunch. So I feel like there needs to be definitely a greater control in the content that's placed in the games, but not so much just a greater control in the content back to the parent side. They need to know what they're buying for their kids. They need to know the content that's placed inside the game so they do know whenever they go in, not just have the person they're working explain to them. So it's still a mystery when the crude violence is going to end. I honestly don't think it will. I think it's just going to keep on going, but we'll see as time goes on. Unfortunately, with the demand as high as it is, with the violence as bad as it is, they're still going to keep selling. They're still going to keep making it. It's not going to prevent them. They're making money, so they're doing their job. They're doing what they are intended to do. We can try and reduce it as much as we can. Back to the parents. That's their job, to buy for the kid what they want. The ESRB rating enables the parents to actually be able to take advantage of that and know. So with more parental control, I feel like tragedies like Columbine could possibly be reduced. That's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Thank you for coming.